This is the Alternative Investing Advantage podcast from Advanta IRA, where we show you how to explore investments beyond Wall Street and open your eyes to new options for your portfolio. It's time to take control and give yourself the freedom to choose where you invest your money.
Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Alternative Investing Advantage podcast. My name is Alex Perny, as always, and today we are very pleased to welcome on Brandon Cobb, CEO of HBG Capital, to talk about some interesting nuances when it comes to investing in real estate at a higher level that, most people are kind of used to when you hear about a real estate investment firm. You're more often than not hearing, oh, hey, apartments are great, commercial multifamily, industrial, car washes, self-storage. And while all these are great options, looking at the lens of real estate through different types of single family strategies and how that can play in and be still very beneficial and relevant in today's market, I think is a really, really cool concept. And I say cool concept as if it's something new, but it certainly isn't. Single family homes are, where a lot of us got our start. That's where my career was kind of based out of trying to buy REO bankroll properties back in the beginning of 2012 and 2013 after the Great Recession. So it's something I am certainly very passionate about and certainly very much looking forward to talking to Brandon. So Brandon, give us a little bit of background about yourself, and then we'll kind of dive into some of the juicy topics that we've outlined today.
Yeah. And first off, Alex, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Right now we work with a lot of investors who are interested in building a legacy, creating passive income from real estate, and ultimately trying to retire. We work in the Nashville, Tennessee market. We focus on first-time homebuyer, entry-level housing, and build-to-rent communities. But once upon a time, that was not the case. I didn't have this story where I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't have a story where I was working a corporate job for 20 years, was fed up, and had to make a change. I actually love what I was doing. I did medical device sales. So I was the kind of guy where if you were older or younger, you had a sports-related injury, a rotator cuff tear or a labral tear, you go into the operating room and, chances are if you're in my market, using my doctors, using my product. So I loved what I did. Young guy in his mid-20s, getting to rub shoulders with orthopedic surgeons, getting to go in and train hospital staff on how to make the patient's life better, how to make the surgery go better. I was very intrinsically motivated. I loved what I did. I never thought that I was going to quit that job. And I never did quit that job. There was one Friday in April, sunny afternoon, and I remember I had a trial that went absolutely fantastic. One of the best days you could have as a medical device sales rep. The other rep was saying things to upset the doctor, tick him off. Everything was going well with my products. I was trying some power equipment over at Meharry Hospital near downtown Nashville. And I met my boss at the Starbucks over on West End afterwards, excited to give him the great news that not only did our power trial go well, but it looked like I was going to be picking up some implant and disposable business potentially as well. And before I could get to the great news, he fires me. And it was a complete shock. I was not prepared for this. And about 3 hours later, the shock wears off, and I started thinking to myself, what did I do wrong? All these years, blood, sweat, and tears spent working the hours. I had the Rookie of the Year sales award. I was giving it my all. My job was pretty much my lifestyle, wondering what in the world could I have done differently? And the reality is that there was not a whole lot I could do. At the end of the day, the company has to do whatever's best for the company. And that decision was to let me go. But I learned that day that nobody was going to look out for my financial well-being but me. And so now I'm on a mission to help other people's realize that dream and do the same.
Yeah, that's one's a very compelling story I think a lot of people can resonate with. And two, there maybe is a high degree of likelihood that I have one of the company's implants in my shoulder. This thing is like the $6 million man on my right side. It's had all the fun injuries between labrum, rotator cuff, repairs, rebuild. It works. That's about it. So yeah, great background on it. So I think that's always a good point to kind of pick this up on, especially when we talk to people that have stories such as yourself, where it's transitioning into something different from what they were doing, whether they hated it or they loved it. It's a very similar trajectory for a lot of people. So what kind of made you, kind of examine real estate as the next thing that you wanted to dive into? And maybe why do you focus on the market and the investment structures that you do in your day-to-day course of business?
Yeah, so real estate was the first thing that took off. So when I was jobless, luckily I had read some books and prepared myself. I had retirement accounts, I had a year's worth of emergency funds saved up. So I was in this situation, I think I was 27 at the time. I didn't have to go get a job. It was very weird just waking up and not having like anything to do. It's kind of funny what having something that gives you fulfillment does to your brain and your energy when you wake up in the morning. Because when I had nothing, I could not hardly get up. I mean, this was the weirdest thing in the world. I was getting like 10 hours of sleep and I was exhausted each day I woke up. It was so weird because I didn't have any fulfillment. I wasn't working towards something. So I needed that. So I immediately thought that, all right, I got to go and create something. I'll give myself a 6-month ultimatum. If I don't make any money myself, then I'll just go get another job. I was comfortable with the worst case scenario. So thinking that I wanted to be the next Tony Robbins, I started doing the whole life coaching thing, thinking that, hey, I'm going to help people break into this medical device sales business. It's kind of a tough business to break into. I'll create an online training course and I'll sell that. I started doing real estate over on the side as well, and I wanted to be a life coach. Well, I started going around, putting in the footwork, going to all the networks and meetups, and through a lot of effort, ended up finding a home that was facing foreclosure. And as soon as I had that opportunity and I'm like, okay, I see that I can make some money here, I immediately cut loose all the other little potential businesses I was working on. And I focused just on that business. Ended up making $30,000 from flipping that home. I sold all my retirement accounts to buy that house. At the time, I did not know that you could, use these interesting vehicles like self-directed IRAs and stuff to buy real estate and invest in real estate. So took the penalty, sold all of my properties or my all my investment accounts, bought that property from it, ended up flipping it, making 30 grand. And the rest of the story is just a mix of a snowball where for the first 4 years, all the profits I just dumped back into the company. I lost $111,000 of my own savings the first 2 years to keep me afloat while I pretty much raised my business. In the next 2 years, I paid myself a salary of about $36,000 a year, just enough to get by. Again, single guy, in his 20s, no debt. I had very, very low income requirements to stay alive while I was building my business. And so it just snowballed. Now, over time, we saw the opportunity on the wall. We started flipping houses. Then we started building houses. Then we started doing land developments. And we noticed that there was a fantastic runway for first-time homebuyer housing. A lot of people call it, affordable housing, not to be confused with Section 8 or government housing. But we noticed that when we went and pulled up a chair on the same side as the municipality that we were getting these developments approved and said, hey, what's lacking in the community? What is everybody complaining about? What do you guys want? What's the vision for the community? They will tell you. And so we try to be more of a partner, where we were trying to be more of a partner to them when we first got into them. And it turns out that's a great strategy when you pull up a chair on the same side of the table rather than trying to be a new face at a public hearing and try to shove something down the city's throat. And so everything we do now is in line with what the community needs. And so we're very good at going out and reverse engineering that vision for the city and putting these parcels of land under contract that are not the highest and best use that the city wants to see developed. And we'll go in and we will place mostly entry-level housing there. So we do some mix. We rezone some commercial and some retail. We've done that, but primarily it's entry-level single-family housing. And so these are first-time homebuyer communities. We love this runway because you have less than 10% of the homes being built that are for first-time homebuyers, but you have over 33% of the home buying population. These are millennials that are reaching the age where they're ready to buy a home that need something. So there's a huge supply and demand imbalance for this specific product right here. And we see that. And if we can couple the demand for that product with being in the right city where institutional money is flowing in, large corporations are flowing in, small businesses are pouring in, and consumers are moving there, we feel like it gives us a great investment thesis for the future.
No, absolutely. And I think that's a really kind of a very interesting approach to take. So often people look at it, from the market perspective. It's like, hey, what can this market support? Let me sit down with my investors or my, investment team and look at it and say, hey, look, I think we can do X, Y, and Z and align on that side instead of kind of first focusing on, hey, what does the city want? Let's get the municipality kind of on our side and then branch off from there and then see how that works into the market. And I wholly agree with you to the issue of, again, affordable housing in the context of first-time home buyers. Yes, there is certainly a market and a need for affordable housing for low-income individuals, but for that middle-class segment, it's almost impossible to buy. At least in
Yeah.
my area where I live in St. Pete, my wife and I purchased our home back in, I was 2016 at this point. And again, very middle class. We love our house, built in the 1950s. It's cool, mid-century modern. But these same kind of houses have over doubled or like almost, gone up by like, again, an absurd amount of money to the point where wages haven't increased, but these people still want to buy here and move. And they don't want to live in an apartment. So again, and everything that's going up in our neighborhood is, these, some of them are kind of cool, but they are certainly not first time home buyer type products. So let's kind of look at it from the definition standpoint. I think people kind of understand what a low income or an affordable housing in the traditional context is. But when people say first time homes, a lot of times they probably think more of like what I have, like built in the 1950s, it's older. When people think newer construction or developed, it's two into that spectrum. It's the middle to high end, and it's the more the Section 8, for lack of a better term, that kind of development. So, I'm sure it's definitely going to be market specific. You're not going to build the same house on this city as you are in that city, and probably neighborhood to neighborhood as well. But let's kind of dig into what exactly does that mean at a high level and maybe get a little bit granular as well. What is that affordable housing in the context that you are developing?
Yeah, and I hope you're not looking for a long drawn out explanation of this, but it's very quite simple. Is the mortgage between $2,300 and $2,700 a month? Because that is what your average first time home buyer can afford right now. That's going to put you, depending on how much money you put down, or if you're getting a FHA loan versus a conventional loan, somewhere into the mid to high 300,000s. That's what you're essentially looking for.
Oh, that's awesome. That's also I like it when you can simplify the thesis to something that's that relatable. It's okay. What do they want to spend? And I feel like we overcomplicate things, especially from the buying perspective and the people that are interacting between mortgage brokers and realtors of all these different kind of metrics. It's like, no, at the end of the day, here's how much I can spend between property taxes, insurance, and my PI payment. That's what I can afford. So let's look at that and then kind of work back from there. And let's kind of look at, maybe what a typical build might look like. So you have a price point in mind for that particular market. What differentiates this, from that Section 8 affordable housing? What do these houses kind of look like? What are you kind of building for them? And are these generally rehabs, or are they ground up construction, or a blend?
Yeah, so everything's ground up new construction. And just to put things in perspective, we've probably got 600-700 units in the pipeline. We're not building all those houses. So everything with our investment firm is predicated on really right now 6 specific investment strategies that we're advising and we're implementing in our business. And one of those, number one, is multiple exit strategies. So when we go and we put a piece of land that's slated for, again, entry level housing, we're force appreciating the value of that land through the rezone process, taking a piece of agricultural land and taking it from 1 or 2 houses to 50, 100, 150 plus houses. And then we can either flip that to another developer who's going to develop it and do entry level housings, or we can be the developer. Exit strategy number 2, develop and sell the lots to a Lennar or Smith & Douglas or Pulte or whoever. And then, of course, exit strategy number 3 is we actually build and sell ourselves. Now, as far as some of the nuances between these houses and like Section 8 and government housing, I honestly have not toured a ton of like Section 8 or government housing. From what I've heard, I do know people who run large portfolios of this specific type of housing. It's typically not new, right? These are older housing, it's government assistance. You've got to qualify for it. And so with that comes a certain demographic for the neighborhood. These are brand new homes. And so what does somebody want in a brand new home? One is the affordability of it. They want to be able to get in. We talked about that $2,300 to $2,700 per month mortgage, but they want some kind of space, some kind of yard, some kind of patio for the family. It doesn't have to be big. At least a 30-foot backyard is typically what you're going to see. If it doesn't have at least 30 feet, it's kind of hard to really see your kids and dog playing in that backyard. Having some kind of little patio space and some kind of neighborhood feel. There's got to be some kind of, trees, a plant, something that makes you feel like that you're in a neighborhood and it's home. That's what we're going for here. 3-bed, 2-bath. They're usually cookie cutter homes. That's how we're able to make a lot of these affordable and build them in a time frame that makes it affordable. We're typically copying and pasting over and over again through the neighborhood and then giving each home its own, unique character. Townhomes are another great product. We love townhomes. That's one that we're trying to get to pencil for the build to rent. So for those that, can't, have been pushed out of that first time home buyer bracket because of interest rates and they have to rent something, we're trying to get some of these townhome communities to pencil for build to rent. And so having those amenities, the biggest thing people are looking for these days is a sense of community. Right? They want to be around something that's happening. It's got to have some kind of coffee shop, some local restaurants at least. It's got to be, 15 minutes to an interstate to be able to get around. These are some of the common things that we're seeing buyers who are buying homes for the first time say, this is what I want, give it to me.
Oh yeah, those are all kind of interesting things that, again, I never would have inherently thought about on this type of market. But again, kind of going back from that and figuring out, one, aligning with the communities that want to do this stuff to help with that rezoning. And so from at least the initial purchase acquisition, are you mainly focusing, so you're not mainly focusing on like demo, tear down, rebuild, are you focusing on that? Or is it mainly just like land repurposing, like raw agriculture, just, again, general land development? Which kind of bucket do you fall in? Or is it, again, a mixture?
Yeah, everything starts with a raw slated piece of land. That's what we focus on. We want to take a piece of land and force appreciate the value. Similar in the commercial world where you go in, you've got a business strategy, you're going to renovate it or chop it up into more units or, find a specific tenant that you can charge more because you know what they're looking for in the area that they're looking. There's a value add strategy to increase your net operating income and then force appreciate the value of the asset. We do the same thing, but our force appreciation occurs before we buy it. So we put a piece of land under contract and we rezone it to 50, 100, 200 homes. And we go through all the entitlements and improvements. And once that value has been created, then we can go in and we can buy it from that point. So we're not doing any rehabs, though we used to have a house flipping company, 6-7 years ago. Everything we do now is land development, new construction, working with the city, rezones, and entitlement.
Okay, awesome. Now, it's easy to kind of think of, okay, this makes a lot of sense, but where's their raw land? Well, it's, places where there aren't a whole lot of people typically. You don't find, a huge plot of land in the middle of a city. And if you did, it would be priced out of certainly making this kind of development. I get a little bit confused on that concept. I live in one of the highest population density areas in the Southeast United States. Ironically enough, it's the Pinellas County, which makes the Bay of Tampa Bay. It's like zero green space. I was looking on Zillow last night, and there's a 16-acre parcel in kind of up by Clearwater. It's like $30 million. Yeah, it's just mind-boggling, some of these things. So the point I'm trying to illustrate is that, okay, raw land, it's abundant, but again, there's not a whole lot of stuff around there. So the question I'm leading into is, how do you kind of, what are some of the metrics that you use for trying to determine where you want to put this? Obviously, it needs to be adjacent to some type of, major metro or an expanding metro, something that, has a draw in. And obviously, you want to be kind of in that path of progress. If everyone's going north, you probably don't buy on the south side unless you think that something's going to go south or east or west. Pick your cardinal direction. So let's kind of talk about that on maybe kind of the investment selection criteria for figuring out where you want to place these investments.
Yeah, so great question. There's a lot of great cities. I love Nashville, Tennessee. It's not the only space, but we want to follow the money. That's the ultimate strategy. From high level, follow the money. And there's 4 different types of money streams. You've got your large institutions, you've got your large corporations like Amazon, etc., Facebook, you've got your small businesses, and then you've got consumers. Those are the ones with the money. Follow the money. So what does that look like? How do you know if you've got money flowing into a specific city or a specific area? So from an institutional standpoint, if you can count cranes downtown, you've got institutional money coming in. If you're seeing and reading that there's a lot of hotels being opened up in a certain area, if you're seeing large hotel prices, that's a great indication. Nashville, I think the average hotel price is like $350, $400 a night. I mean, it's insane. I was in Atlanta. The average Atlanta hotel is like $150. So tons of supply of hotels in Atlanta, not as many in Nashville, and you can see them building up. Those are great indications that you've got a lot of institutional money that's being in. Specifically, when you're reading some of the stats, like in Nashville, for example, we had about $7.5 billion of institutional investments from 2010 to 2019. And currently, right now, as of about a year and a half ago, we had 6 billion under construction. So it's exponentially increasing the number of institutions that are moving to Nashville because they recognize that it's a really great place. Now, large corporations, how do you know if you've got the Oracles and the Amazons and the Facebooks and the Meta or whoever coming? Well, grab a copy of your local Dallas, Texas Business Journal or Nashville Business Journal. It's going to tell you, right? Some of them are very obvious. We just got an Amazon building downtown. I mean, it says Amazon, right? It's advertised. There's large billboards that are indicating it's going to have over 5,000 jobs, C-suite execs. Oracle just announced, I think they were moving their headquarters here. We've got Alliance Bernstein, Nissan, Dell Computers, Kaiser. So paying attention to what the journals are saying, what the news sources are with these large businesses that are coming. And your third is going to be your small businesses. Look at what's going on, in your world of commercial leasing. How has that price increased or decreased over time? What does the market look like? Can you go out and get a commercial lease? What's the average days on market for that? That's going to give you a great indication of what exactly is going on in the commercial lease world with small businesses. And finally, consumers, right? I mean, consumers bring a lot of money. Look at what the median home sales are going to an area. Look at the population growth. Be in a top 10 fastest growing city if you can. Nashville's been one of those for the past 5-6 years. I mean, it's wild how many people are moving here. So those are the couple things. Another high level thing that I'll throw in there is COVID revealed this environment that we all knew was there, but just made it very obvious. And that's that we've got business friendly states and we've got non-business friendly states. And so you're seeing this huge migration of all 4 of those capital streams, institutional capital, large corporations, small businesses, and consumers, away from these non-business friendly, high-taxed, highly government-regulated states to more business-friendly states like Florida, which you're in, like Tennessee, like Texas. So we've seen this great migration of capital that's flowing into these business-friendly states. That's how we're picking the specific markets, and for us, it's very easy. There's a long runway to go here in Nashville. So I don't think we're going to go to any other markets anytime soon, but there's plenty others that meet this criteria if you sit down here with a magnifying glass and a filter and take the time to look at it.
No, yeah, that's all really great points. It's another thing I would kind of add in there. I mean, I would assume looking at like quarterly earnings reports and annual prospectuses for any of your large major corporations, they typically disclose new developments and projected revenue streams for stuff like that. So, there's a lot of different information out there for people that are, looking for this, and it's pretty much a lot of it is readily available. Even to your point about saying just drive through it downtown and look at the cranes.
Yeah.
It's some of it is painfully obvious to look out and say, oh, they're building something. You don't have to drive through every neighborhood and see if there's a construction crew. It's, oh, well, they're building all that because people are coming here. What am I trying to do is build things for people coming here. So, you don't have to overcomplicate a lot of this stuff. Certainly there are complex portions of this, and whenever you're looking at investment, it's good to be very analytical. But at the same time, what I enjoy talking to guests such as yourself is that, there's a big demystification that I try to do with this podcast of saying, you don't have to have a math, like a forensic accounting degree from Harvey Mudd. You can come into this with some very common sense stuff and identify stuff that, will make you successful. Granted, make sure you understand what you're doing. Don't just throw stuff at a wall to see if it sticks. So, we've, talked about the, market selection. One thing that's always, at least good to look at is how this stuff and what opportunities arise from depressions in other markets, such as what I really think we're about to see coming up. We're about 5 years out of COVID, when money was free and everyone and their brother was trying to underwrite commercial real estate, and a lot of these deals had, again, people were getting into it for their first time, and you have people writing in their prospectuses saying, hey, with a refi based on 5 years. Well, if you're trying to refi something with a balloon note, 5 years out, and now money has quadrupled in price, I mean, to say that your cap rate is being put in a vice and squeezed is putting it about as mildly as I can for a podcast. So what kind of opportunities are you going to kind of see, and what do you think is going to come of that type of constriction and depression that, again, we're most likely going to see, unless the Fed comes out and says, you know what, we're going to go at the the money rate with a machete, which, again, I don't think we're going to see. What are your kind of thoughts on that portion of the opportunities that are going to be afforded to you and investors in this space by that?
Well, it's all supply and demand, right? I want to be in an area where there's a lot of supply and not a whole lot of demand, because that means that there are buying opportunities. I want stuff at great prices. We picked up some fantastic land opportunities when everybody was panicking and freaking out, right? There's 6 things we're doing to help mitigate a lot of these risks, because if you can do this, then you're not going to find yourself on the other side being forced to sell. I think that is the only situation where you can eventually lose money in real estate, is if you're forced to sell, because over time it's always going to appreciate. So all the stuff that's happening, all the bridge debt that everybody took out to buy multifamily, commercial, and industrial, and now it's time to refinance. I think that there's going to be a bloodbath. I think that people are going to be forced to sell. And unfortunately, a lot of limited partners and general partners are going to get hurt. But it's going to present a fantastic buying opportunity for those who are aware of it, have the capital ready, have the investor ready, have the underwriting knowledge ready to just literally, I think everything in multifamily right now is almost like 20% off. I mean, you're seeing some fantastic opportunities. I don't think you're going to see, I think 10, 15, maybe even 20 years from now, everyone's going to look back right now, not ahead, and go, holy cow, I wish I'd bought more commercial and multifamily real estate. So I think now is the time to really capitalize on it. I've got my own money in some multifamily and deals that aren't going so hot. Like I know firsthand that it's not going so hot. I'm probably going to lose all my money in a couple of those deals, and it is what it is, right? So make sure that you're on the buying side and you're prepared for it, because I think you're going to see some phenomenal opportunities. I think it's going to get even better. I don't think that we're out of this correction just yet. I think that inflation, if you look at it historically, again, I don't have a crystal ball. All we can do is look back at history and make projections from that. But this isn't the first time we've had inflation. We've had it multiple times, and it tends to be very volatile. It tends to come back with a vengeance. So I don't think that we're completely out yet. A lot of people are looking at what the Fed said and said, oh, it's just a matter of time before they lower rates. Like, don't think so. Don't think so. Don't anticipate that. I think that the rest of the year is going to be interesting. It's going to be volatile, especially with the upcoming election. That's going to be your big, you can't call it a black swan event because it's planned, but nobody knows what's going to happen there. You've got one person that says if he's elected, he's going to pretty much, keep everything the same, right? Which means you're still going to have the same problems we've continued to happen. He's got a green agenda. He's not super business favorable. He's going to let energy prices do what energy prices are doing, which is what's caused the inflation in the first place. Didn't prioritize the supply chain issue, which again caused the inflation that we're seeing right now. And you got another guy who's like, drill, baby, drill. We're going to get these energy prices under control. We're going to be business friendly. We're going to, help mitigate and control the supply chain and actually do something about the actual disease that has caused the inflation in the first place. Inflation is just a symptom. It's not the disease. You've got to actually go in and kill the disease, the virus that's causing it. And so those are two enormously different perspectives that I think are going to have an effect on interest rates. And right now, interest rates seem to be driving all the investment decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And the lens that I look at it through is, as awesome as it was to see, in the, to like 2 point something interest rates on single family homes, 30-year fixed, it's not a sustainable metric. There isn't enough return to come out. And yes, it was great, but people have to be realistic. A market, and people are like, oh my God, it's gone up so much. Yes, it has, but a sustainable market should probably have somewhere. And again, I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not a financial whiz by any means, but somewhere around the 4 to 5% mark is reasonable. I mean, it's still cheap money. You can make deals work. Now with the pricing that we've had, yeah, I mean, it's tight, but there will be some adjustment. Will it go up? Might go up a little bit. Will it come down? Most likely it will. But that's with any market. But you just have to realize that that huge spike is not something that huge inverse spike. That drop in interest rates is most likely not going to happen. Granted, it might. Who saw COVID coming? No one, I think, saw that was going to happen, and sure enough, it happened. So again, crazier things have happened, but most likely people need to kind of stop looking at it saying, oh, when is it going to come back down to there, and start looking at the present.
I think you're right. It's just going to take some time for that to happen. The time that people got kind of spoiled.
When investors can start being realistic, and there's going to be blood in the streets, and when there's blood in the streets, buy property. And I guess it's kind of topical to say that statement. But so let's look at it from the perspective, okay, there's going to be a lot of opportunities in the commercial multifamily space. I think you're dead right. Starting now, it is kind of it's going to start precipitating more and more and more. And we're going to see that kind of come to fruition over the next year to two. Because again, those typical 5-year runoffs that they write in, they were written in 2020, 2025, simple math, is coming due now. So it's easy to look at that, but the focus of your investment thesis is the single family development space. Do you think that there might be some lessons learned that might push people out? Let's look at the money side of things, right? And then we'll look at the competition side. Mm-hmm. Do you think it might be pushing some people out of the financing side of this and saying, look, let's look at something else and bring more money to increase deal flow in the areas that you're looking at? Or do you think people will just wait, kind of cyclical in that area? Or do you think it might actually be a benefit for people saying, let's look at something that, is maybe more in line with the single family space?
Yeah. So talk to me about the perspective you're coming from. I want to make sure. Are you talking about like an institution coming in and buying it? Or are we looking from this perspective as we're like a homeowner looking to invest in a home?
I'm talking about more the institutional side. So the people that are underwriting the commercial multifamily saying, hey, look, these operators, good, bad, or indifferent, these deals are going to be problematic. Might scare them off and say, hey, let's look at other areas to deploy our capital and to underwrite it. And, single family might be a very good space. Granted, 2006s can happen, but, I don't think we're going to see, I think there's been a lot of lessons learned and would maybe tend to be a little bit more stable. So do you think it's going to drive more of the institutional money to come into your space?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know that there's a lot of institutional money that has been buying single family housing for build to rent communities. That's tapered off after interest rates because it's much more difficult to get it to pencil a separate, larger standalone home than like a smaller apartment conjoined space. And so you've seen a big push away from build to rent in the institutional space. Like we've definitely sold some stuff to BTR guys. We know who they are. And right now the bigger players are the national home builders, which are pretty much owned by Wall Street. They're owned by the biggest institutions that are out there. And what I'm hearing from them, so if we're looking at my conversations with Lennar and Smith and Douglas Homes and DR Horton and Pulte and saying, hey, this is the institutional capital talking, because it is, if you follow it up the chain large enough. I mean, they can't buy stuff fast enough. I mean, I was talking with the DR Horton rep and they're wanting to I mean, they're wanting to add an insane amount of homes to the portfolio. They can't find finished lots anywhere. It's at least in our market. And so there was a pullback in September of 2022 when the shock factor kicked in. And there for the better part of 7-8 months, everything froze. We had 6 letter of intents to purchase on one of our pieces of land that we bought, and that completely dried up. And now that the market's back and we've literally just started development on 74 of these home sites, man, we have a ton of interest again. So we felt it freeze for a little bit to wait and kind of see what interest rates would do. But I don't think it had the horrific effects everybody was expecting. And so they sort of jumped back in with a vengeance, especially in Q2 of last year, going, crap, all the contracts I had on all the land, can I have them back, the ones that I dropped out of? Because their 2025 numbers are not going to get hit because they literally didn't buy anything from September of 2022 to summer of 2023. There's no inventory purchased. And so they're scrambling to catch back up because the demand that they thought wasn't going to be there, turns out it's there. Stuff's moving and grooving. So I'm personally seeing a lot of that institutional money moving in. The national home buyers, I mean, they're buying up everything. They're guns a-blazing, full force. The hedge funds that were deploying money into the build to rent space, and again, this would be like more of your multifamily type asset, they just can't get those communities to pencil like they used to. So we're not seeing as much of that specific type of institutional money. So I'm speaking from a first-hand perspective, the conversations that I'm having. I don't have a national lens to look things through, but that's what I'm actually seeing, feeling, and hearing on the market in Nashville, Tennessee. And I think it's everywhere because when I talk to these guys, it seems to be a consensus.
Yeah, and I think you're probably pretty, cut and paste with most of the major development areas. I don't think it's probably going to be too much different of a lens that you're looking through. If you're looking through places, at least, again, to the point we made before of COVID kind of highlighting where people want to deploy capital and where that exodus of institutional capital, whether it be business locations, warehousing, any of these businesses are moving, places like Texas, Georgia, Tennessee, in various places, it's easy to kind of say that it's probably going to hold true with variances. Certainly it's like you might be eating, everywhere has ice cream, but you might be getting chocolate here, vanilla here, strawberry there, but you're all kind of eating, out of the same trough.
Yeah.
Now, when we're kind of looking at that, I think it leads very well into, kind of the back half of this. We've talked about volatility, but, navigating risk is something I feel like is really important to kind of illustrate. We've kind of, again, talked about the high levels of it, looking at, where you're investing, making sure that it's, kind of in line with all that. But what are some other kind of risk factors that, you've identified and try to mitigate in this type of investment strategy? Because it's not all just, they're not all home runs. You have to make sure that everything is looked at objectively. And what are some kind of the biggest risk factors that you're looking at in 2024 and maybe looking at it, into 2025, because it is wild to say that we are, in the first third of May already in this year. So
I know it's wild.
The older I get, the more often I say that, and I hate myself because my dad said it constantly growing up, and I always thought he sounded so old. I mean, like, can't believe it's already May.
You're becoming dad. Well, that's a great point because everybody's business plan that they had pre Q2, Q3, 2022 has kind of been thrown out the window, and they've had to start underwriting differently, different assumptions, everything. For us, there's 6 main bullet points that we want to hit. Number one, we want to have multiple exit strategies. Don't lock yourself into that. We've got 3 right now. I'm trying to get a 4th to pencil. When we go in and we underwrite these parcels of land, again, we can either force appreciate the value, buy it, and then sell it to another developer who's going to develop it, or we can be the developer, where we can put all the roads, the infrastructure, the utilities in and sell the finished, ready to build home sites to the Lennars and the Pulte's and the DR Hortons of the world. Or we can also be the builder on it. So it gives us 3 different exit strategies in the event that 1, 2, or 3 doesn't work out. The 4th is we're trying to be able to rent these out, right? We want to be the builder and hedge fund. Exit strategy number 2 is the ability to be able to control the debt. So used to, when we were doing a lot of these land development deals, when we were just developing the land, we were doing 50% debt, 50% equity. That's no longer a thing because of what's going on. We do 100% equity deals now with investors. So we, along with our investor partners, own the land outright. Nobody can call anything due. We don't have any monthly payments. We can afford to hang on to it. Just like we did with our land that we are just now developing 74 home sites on. We bought that in 2022 in September. Had we done a bank loan on that, we would have gotten that called. Could have put us in a little bit of a pickle, right? Could have been a distressed situation. But we bought it with investor partners, which allowed us to sit on that deal and hang on to that deal, which is the 3rd thing I'm going to talk about, is the ability to hold on to it, right? So in the multifamily world, you always want to make sure that that loan and your expenses can get paid. Here, you want to make sure that you don't have anything that's going to cause a cash flow issue. So when we're raising funds, we're raising everything plus a little bit extra. And worst case scenario, we can sit on it. Like I said, the only time you lose money in real estate is when you are being forced to sell something. We don't ever want to get ourselves in a situation where we're forced to sell something. So we're getting creative. We are still using bank debt, but we're using a lot of private investor funds and debt, and doing a 3-year loan, no monthly interest payments until they get paid off first, right? So it's a win-win for everybody. The 4th is making sure you've got forced asset appreciation. So we kind of talked about this a little bit, but in our business, much like the commercial where you force appreciate it through a business plan, we're force appreciating it before we buy it, rezoning it to 50, 100, 200 plus homes, building in a buttload of equity for ourselves and for our investor partners. And by the way, it's a great value proposition because we're usually able to pay people 2, 3, 4, 5 times what their home is worth because we're adding so much value to it. So making sure that you can force appreciate and literally handle and manage what the value of that asset is, and you're not just reliant on the market to make fluctuations. The 5th is having some kind of end buyer lined up. And so not just speculating and kind of throwing it on the market and hoping something. On all of our land development deals, we don't develop anything or stick a dollar in it until we have an end buyer with a contract in place, a significant earnest money deposit, and our due diligence period or their due diligence period is up. So we've got this end buyer locked in. And these are strong end buyers. These are your national home builders, right? I've already mentioned like the DR Hortons and the Goodall Homes and Lennars of the world. That's who we're dealing with. So we know we got the money. And finally, number 6 is making sure that you've got plenty of downside protection. This got thrown out the window in the multifamily commercial world in like 2022. I just couldn't see how there was any downside protection built into a lot of the deals that I was seeing. The assumptions on like 6 to 8% rent growth and all this crazy stuff that I saw being penciled in, I was like, what in the world? Like, where's the downside protection on all this? And look at what happened. So making sure that you can build in a lot of downside protection for the land that we bought. We're developing 74 home sites here. We've got it under contract for about $85,000 per pad. It would have to go down to about $61,000, $62,000 per pad before we broke even on the deal. So that's a 25% reduction in the price of the asset for a break even. And again, worst case, we can just hang on to it, wait for the market to bounce back in the event we get another COVID event or crazy interest rate event. So those are the 6 things that we're implementing in our business today that's allowing us to mitigate risk, not only for ourselves, but our investor partners as well.
Yeah, and I think 2 of the interesting points that really translate well into, a lot of, external investing. Some of them are very specific onto kind of your, thesis on what you do. But looking at it from the perspective of saying, hey, like the less debt you can have on something, again, maybe I wouldn't say better. Debt is out there. It can be good. It can let you do a lot of things. Mm-hmm. But from the perspective of saying, hey, if we only have to be beholden to our fixed cost of taxes, insurance, things like that, as opposed to a ticking time bomb of a balloon on a note or having to get extremely high interest bridge debt to bridge us out a little farther for the hope that things drop. Again, understanding that, I think, has really, illuminated the benefit of having lower debt or no debt. Certainly not everyone can, but the quick and easy route of raising less investor capital and debt financing these deals to the gills, I think is really going to become evident here on just how problematic that can be. And again, if you're only beholden to your investors and you can afford holding, those holding costs are going to be significantly less than $10 million that you got to repay. If you're talking about maybe, $50,000, $100,000 in fixed costs versus that large balloon coming due, then again, those benefits can really translate well into anything you're doing. Having more skin in the game when there is market uncertainty is never a bad thing, because if you do have to offload it, you get more money to then go out and redeploy and reposition. Again, I think those are, very sound bites to kind of take away from, your strategy and in the broader sense of, the community as well. With that said, I think we're hitting right up on about 45 minutes, which I always aim to make my producer happy with good content that's packaged in a nice round bucket for us. Again, I really do appreciate you being on with us today. I certainly want people to be able to get in touch with you if they're interested in any investment opportunities, or if they're interested in learning more about this. How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, if you're interested in learning more about diversifying into entry-level housing, specifically in Nashville, Tennessee, or you're somebody who's just trying to build a legacy, make an impact, and ultimately build something that you want to retire on, we've got a ton of free resources on our website, hbgcapital.net. That's pronounced Harry, Bob, Gary, capital.net. I joked that the .com got stolen before we got it, so is a .net. But on that website, we've got a free ebook, 100 Questions Business Owners Ask Before Investing. You can grab it. It's absolutely free. I wrote that ebook because I got a call from one of our investors one day who had a friend who lost all of his money in an investment in California, asked if I could help him out. And it became very evident when I got on this phone and I started talking to this guy's buddy that had he been able to ask the right questions, he could have gotten the answers he needed to make a more informed decision. I mean, they didn't do the paperwork right. He wasn't secured. I mean, it was a complete disaster because he was so green. Questions unlock the answers we need to make more informed investment decisions. So you can grab that free ebook on our website. Tons of other educational content. We've also got our own podcast, Recession Resistant Real Estate Radio. You can check that out as well.
All right, fantastic. Well, again, the most valuable resource we all have isn't the dollars in our pocket. It's the time that we have in the day, because you can't make any more of it. So I really appreciate you spending a few of your precious minutes with us today and our audience to talk with us. My name is Alex Perny. This has been the Alternative Investing Advantage podcast, and thanks for joining. Thank you for tuning in to the Alternative Investing Advantage podcast. Tune in next week for more investing tips and strategies.
Want to hear more episodes of the Alternative Investing Advantage? Search podcast at advantaira.com and subscribe.